Have you ever wondered, why do you always fall for the same kind of love, intense, passionate, yet ending in pain and doubt? What if I told you that love isn't destiny or coincidence, it's a mirror of your soul? Carl Jung, one of the most profound thinkers of the 20th century, once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." So what if the love you attract is part of that fate, not chosen by the universe, but shaped by the unnamed wounds within you? Most of us believe love is a mix of chemistry, luck, and destiny. But here's the deeper truth. You're not falling for the other person. You're falling for the part of yourself they unknowingly reflect. And it's not always the prettiest part. Sometimes it's the part you forgot or never dared to face. This is how the shadow, the dark side in Jungian psychology shows up in love. The shadow isn't evil. It's simply what got left behind in your growing up journey. The anger you were told to suppress, the fear you learned to hide, the desire you never dared admit. Then one day someone appears. They make your heart race and break. They touch the rawest part of you, not because they're bad people, but because they embody something you haven't healed. You don't need to keep running. You don't need to keep asking, why do I attract this kind of person? Jung didn't give easy answers. He gave a mirror for you to see yourself. And when you look not with judgment, but with curiosity, you begin to realize every relationship is a lesson. Every heartbreak is a message. And everyone who ever broke your heart helped you see yourself more clearly. This journey isn't about finding someone to fill the void. It's about reclaiming the part of you that you've lost. The love you attract is a reflection of how deeply you know and love yourself. And when you shift internally, the kind of love you attract shifts too. So let's begin this journey. A journey not towards someone else, but back to you, the whole. You light and shadow, loving and lovable, not from need, but from true presence. Imagine a woman named Claire. She's 35, financially independent, smart, and has a stable job in New York. But there's one thing she can figure out why. Is she always drawn to emotionally distant men, the ones who make her feel small, unchosen, never quite a part of their world? Relationship after relationship, Claire finds herself in the same story with different faces. It always begins with passion, charm, the thrill of something romantic and electric. But after a few months, the silence creeps in. Texts go unanswered. Plans get canceled. That old feeling of abandonment returns. And once again, she's alone, asking herself, what's wrong with me? Carl Jung wouldn't say Claire is unlucky in love. He'd look deeper into her unconscious. He would ask, what part of you is unconsciously choosing to repeat this experience? In Jungian psychology, we don't just fall in love with other people. We fall in love through the lens of our shadow. The shadow were rejected, repressed, and wounded selfies, often the hidden playwright behind our love stories. And it doesn't write with logic, but with pain. Claire had a distant father. He never hugged her, never said, I love you. No matter how hard little Claire tried to get his attention, getting good grades, being obedient, helping her mom, he stayed silent. For her love became intertwined with the feeling of not enough. And so 30 years later, she's still chasing love, not just to be loved, but in hopes that her father might finally see her. This is the paradox of love. You're not really loving the person in front of you. You're loving a part of yourself that got left behind. The one you love becomes the living image of an unhealed past. We don't love others for who they are. We love them for what they awaken within us, the wounds we haven't named. Paraphrase from Carl Jung. Have you ever been like Claire, drawn to people who make you anxious, insecure? Like you have to try harder? Maybe you call it deep love. But look again. Could you be trying to rewrite an old story using a new character? If you often find yourself with people who didn't choose you, ask, who was the first person who made me feel unworthy of being chosen? Jung taught that we repeat what we haven't fully understood, like a psychological loophole. We become conscious enough to realize it's not fate, it's a signal from the unconscious. When you're irresistibly drawn to someone, it's rarely true love. It's usually a projection. You're not seeing them. You're seeing a role you need them to play, someone who will finally make you feel enough chosen love. But because that role isn't real, when they fail to act according to the script in your mind, it hurts. Not because they change, but because you're confronted with the truth they were never who you hoped they'd be. Love becomes a stage where your soul replays old scenes. Every jealousy, flare-up fear of abandonment or panic when a message goes unanswered, it's not just about the present. It's the echo of a younger version of you still waiting to be healed. And only when you have the courage to face that part, the shadow can you begin to change the kind of love you attract. Not by finding better people, but by becoming more whole within yourself. Ask yourself, am I loving from my adult heart, from the inner child still searching for a parent? When people are heartbroken, the most common reaction is to find someone new to fill the void. But Carl Jung would remind us it's not love that heals you, it's what love brings up in you that does. Every relationship isn't just a meeting of two people, it's a collision of two unconscious worlds, two shadows unnamed and unexamined. And if you're unaware of what you're bringing into that dynamic, you'll be ruled by what you don't yet see. The intense emotions you experience in love, jealousy, fear of abandonment, feeling overwhelmed or out of control rarely come from the present moment. They're memories reactivated and replayed through a new storyline. Jung called this the activation of complexes, psychological patterns formed early in life when the soul was still learning how to survive. Think of David, a 42-year-old man. On the surface, he's strong, accomplished, the CEO of a tech company, but in relationships, he constantly feels insecure. If his girlfriend doesn't text back quickly, he immediately feels abandoned. Not because she's done anything wrong, but because a part of David, a 7-year-old boy once left by his mother, is still alive inside him. David doesn't realize this. All he knows is, she doesn't love me the way I love her. But in truth, he's not really loving her. He's reliving his love for his mother, hoping that this time she won't leave. And she unconsciously is responding from her own wound. Maybe she once felt controlled. So every time David demands a response, she pulls away to protect herself. The result, two shadows dancing. Two inner children, one clinging, one running, creating a cycle of conflict. And they call it love. Love doesn't hurt you. Unhealed parts of you hurt you in love. Jung believed that intense emotional reactions in relationships aren't signs of deep love, but signs of inner fragmentation. And only when you can sit with those feelings without reacting, without blaming, do you have the chance to break the pattern. So what should you do? Not look for someone to fix you, not blame the one who triggered your pain, but ask, why is this awakening something so deep in me? Emotional maturity in love doesn't mean never getting hurt. It means being able to sit with the pain without hurting others and without hurting yourself. You begin to tell the difference between true love and shadow-driven love. True love doesn't make you anxious every day. True love doesn't require you to trade in your authenticity. True love shows up after you've built a healthy relationship with yourself. The art of love, as Jung implied, isn't about finding your other half to feel whole. It's about turning inward, healing what's been wounded so you no longer need someone to fill the gaps. That's when love stops being a need and becomes a gift. Conclusion. Love isn't the end. It's the beginning of a journey back to yourself. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Maybe you've asked yourself, why do I keep falling into the same kind of relationships? Why do I always feel like I'm not enough, no matter who I love? Why does the harder I try, the more lost I feel in love? But now you see through a different lens. Not to judge the past, but to understand it as part of your awakening. Love, as you've discovered, is more than a feeling. It's a mirror of the soul, a space where old wounds are triggered, where shadows surface, and also a place where you can begin again, from within. No one taught us how to love ourselves before loving another. No one showed us how to tell the difference between the child who needs holding and the adult who must hold boundaries. No one told us love isn't just about finding the right person, but becoming someone who can awaken within love. So if this video stirred something in you, if you saw yourself in the stages wounding, awareness, conscious choice, if you've ever loved with everything and still felt it wasn't enough, then maybe this is your turning point. A new breath, a quiet reminder that you are not broken, you are becoming. and this journey is worth living consciously. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What part of this video changed how you see love? Is there a wound you're learning to see as a symbol for growth? Your story matters because you might be the light someone else needs right now. If you want to keep walking this journey with me, hit subscribe. Not because I have all the answers, but because I promise each video will take us deeper into the path of awareness, healing, and awakening through symbols, emotions, and the wisdom of Jung. Because love doesn't end when a relationship ends. It continues every time you choose to look deeper into yourself. Thank you for staying until the end. We are not alone on this path, we just have to learn to truly see one another. Carl Jung once said Anima and Animus are living symbols, not just concepts. They live within us, shaping how we love, desire, and hurt. Anima is the unconscious feminine within a man. Animus is the unconscious masculine within a woman. When unrecognized, these archetypes don't just influence behavior, they shape our entire perception of love. A man who hasn't integrated his anima is often drawn to women who embody the goddess image, mysterious, passionate, emotionally intense, as if she holds a lost part of his soul. Think of Jay Gatsby in The Great Gatsby. He doesn't love Daisy. He loves the image of Daisy in his mind, a symbol of dreams, salvation, and ideal love. His anima is so dominant that he refuses to see the truth. Daisy isn't a goddess. She's human, flawed, selfish, and real. But to Gatsby, she's the savior of his lost soul. When a man is unconscious of his anima, he idealizes his partner, projecting onto her unconscious power, making her both the source of bliss and the source of pain. Jung said a man dominated by his anima will always seek a woman to complete him rather than growing whole within himself. For women, the animus often shows up as the ideal man, strong, intelligent, decisive, but also potentially judgmental, rigid, and full of opinions on what she should do. In Pride and Prejudice, Elizabeth Bennet's initial tension with Mr. Darcy isn't because he's a bad man. It's because he triggers her animus, the part of her that debates reasons and fights for autonomy. When a woman hasn't made peace with her animus, she may feel split between emotional needs and the internal masculine voice, always evaluating, demanding, or idealizing male partners. An unintegrated animus may lead her to chase emotionally unavailable men, the ones who seem cold or distant. She doesn't love from presence, she loves from hope, hoping this man will validate her worth. When a man dominated by his anima enters a relationship with a woman driven by her animus, they don't truly meet each other. They meet projections. She doesn't love him. She loves the dream of a man who will finally make her feel safe. He doesn't love her. He loves the woman who can take him back to the soul, warm, emotional divine. But because they don't realize this disillusionment is inevitable, when the partner stops being a symbol and reveals their flawed humanity, the fantasy shatters. And so, they move on looking for another person to keep the dream alive. True love doesn't come from meeting the right person. It comes from integrating the right parts of yourself before you meet them. Paraphrase from C.G. Jung. How to integrate anima, animus. Self-awareness. Notice the kind of people you're drawn to. Who do they remind you of? What part of you do they stir? Self-reflection. Journal your dreams, intense feelings, and love. That's where anima, animus speaks. Shift from idealization. Presence. Love the person, not the projection. This requires knowing what you're projecting. Create anima inspires art. Animus fuels ideals. Channel them into creativity, not fantasy. When you integrate these parts, you no longer wait for someone to rescue you. You become whole, and love becomes a meeting of two mature souls, not two shadows searching for each other in the dark. Carl Jung once said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain, and nowhere stirs deeper pain than love." We often hear love heals, but that idea can be misleading, because love is not the healer. Love is the mirror, and you hold the scalpel. Healing within a relationship is one of the hardest paths because it requires both people to be conscious. Both must know, I'm not here to fix you. I'm here to see you and give you space to heal yourself. This isn't the ideal relationship. It's the courageous one. A man might say, I feel my anger rising, not because of you, but because a wounded part of me is being triggered. A woman might say, I feel like running not because of you, but because a younger part of me still believes I'm unworthy of love. In this case, love becomes a laboratory for the soul. You try, you fail, you retreat, you return, and if both partners stay aware, the impossible begins to thaw. Love isn't about finding someone who makes the pain go away. It's about finding someone who can sit with you in the pain without running. But the truth is, not everyone is ready to love this way, and that's when healing alone becomes essential. There's nothing lonelier than walking away from a relationship you gave your heart to, but there's also nothing more powerful than facing yourself without using someone else as a mirror. Healing alone means sitting with the pain instead of rushing into something new. It's asking, why did I stay so long? Why did I believe I had to suffer to be loved? Who first made me feel I wasn't enough? This is when you rebuild your inner world journaling, speaking to your inner child, noticing repeated patterns, learning to love yourself not with bubble baths but with boundaries. Healing alone lays the foundation. So when you enter your next relationship, you're not bringing in a burning house. You're bringing someone who's learned how to live within their own walls. There's no one right path, only the path that fits where you are right now. You don't react, you observe. You don't blame, you inquire. You don't choose someone to complete you. You choose them because you already are complete. Jung believed every relationship is a test. Are you in love or are you searching for a missing piece of yourself? Only when you realize this does love stop being a cycle and start becoming the path back to who you truly are. Carl Jung once wrote, "The child within us never disappears. It only waits for us to return. And in love, that child rarely sleeps. It awakens especially when we feel unloved, rejected, abandoned, or ignored." Here's the paradox. You think it's your adult self falling in love, but often it's your inner child yearning for love inside a grown-up body. How do you know when your inner child is the one loving? You love like it's survival. If they don't text back, you spiral. If they're not nearby, you feel invisible. Your inner child doesn't know how to self-soothe it, only knows how to crave love like oxygen. You idealize or destroy. The child sees no gray area. They're either your savior, or if they disappoint you, the fantasy shatters. Like a child throwing a toy when it doesn't work the way they want. You react instead of reflect. The inner child can't distinguish between now and then. If your partner pulls away, that part of you screams, "I'm being abandoned again." You love to be rescued, not to walk beside someone. The inner child wants to be fully held, completely understood. But the adult knows love is walking side by side. No one is here to save the other. What does it look like when the adult self is loving? You feel your emotions without being ruled by them. You can say, "I feel hurt," instead of "you hurt me." The adult owns their feelings and shares them rather than throwing them. You set boundaries without fearing loss. The adult knows love doesn't mean losing yourself to keep someone else. It means holding yourself and letting others choose to stay or go freely. You don't seek someone to complete you. You seek someone to walk with you, not because they make you enough, but because you already know how to love yourself. You choose based on presence, not potential. Adults love the person standing in front of them, not the dream of who they might become. Emily, 29, is in love with a man who's unclear, inconsistent, and non-committal. Her friends warn her, but she says, "I can feel he loves me. He's just confused." The truth is, Emily is the one who's confused. She's not in love with the man. She's hoping that one day her father will finally choose her. As a child, Emily lived with an alcoholic father, some days affectionate, some days absent. In her unconscious, love became linked with uncertainty. And because her inner child hasn't healed, she chooses familiar chaos, hoping this time the story ends differently. A simple practice: before every wave of anger, fear, or need, pause and ask, who is speaking in me right now? Is this the voice of my adult self or the cry of my inner child? Do I need love, or do I need to learn to hold myself? Jung taught nothing is more dangerous than an unseen child living in an adult's body seeking love. To love deeply, you must love from the place that has matured. To love truly, you must first walk through your inner child and hold them close. We don't reject the inner child. We just don't let them drive when it comes to love. The adult knows real love doesn't always come from instant spark, but from honesty, patience, and hard conversations. The adult knows true love doesn't make your heart race out of panic. It makes you feel safe, seen, and free to grow. Carl Jung once said, "We don't meet others. We meet ourselves in them." And nowhere is that more unsettlingly true than in love. You think you love them for their great qualities, but what you can't seem to let go of is actually something unresolved within you. In Jungian psychology, this is called projection. We throw parts of our unconscious onto someone else and then fall in love or hate with those very parts. She feels warm like a mother. He makes you feel worthy. They haven't done anything extraordinary, yet you feel intensely attached. But this isn't mature love. It's a bond with a part of yourself that's never been fully seen. In the film Joel, a quiet, introspective man is drawn to Clementine, a vibrant, impulsive, chaotic woman. She embodies his unintegrated anima, the wild emotional side of him that he's buried. Clementine, on the other hand, loves Joel because he feels safe, like a home in her storm. But when she starts to feel domesticated, she rebels because unconsciously she's not loving Joel. She's running from an old wound of being controlled as a child. They love each other, but in truth, they're loving the shadow parts they haven't yet faced. And when the pain grows unbearable, they choose to erase the memory. But the heart remembers. You can erase someone from your mind. Getting them out of your heart is another story. Unconscious love doesn't vanish. It just finds a new form until we recognize the projection and finally break the cycle. Without it, you'll keep attracting people who recreate familiar emotions. Abandonment, insecurity, control. Without awareness, you'll believe love is supposed to hurt when pain is really your soul's alarm system asking to be seen. Your addiction to someone isn't because they're special. It's because they perfectly activate your unhealed parts. It's a subtle but powerful difference. Loving the real person, you respect their space you don't control. Loving the projection, you cling, demand, fear loss. How do you break the spell of projection? Study your love patterns. Everyone has a type, but ask what in me keeps choosing them. Track your emotional intensity. Every time you overreact, write it down. That's often the signal of a complex, a deeply embedded wound. Meditate, journal, do shadow work. You can't heal what you haven't named. Stop loving to feel enough. When you know you're already enough, you stop needing someone to prove it. Not a goddess to rescue you. Not a father you never had. Not the one who makes you feel worthy. Just a human, flawed, maybe incompatible, and you still choose them because you're growing together. Jung taught true love doesn't live in possession. It lives in seeing the other clearly without needing them to make you feel anything. Carl Jung called individuation the soul's journey back to its truest self, a process that demands facing our shadow and integrating the fragmented parts of who we are. What few people realize is this love can be one of the most powerful paths to that wholeness. When you fall in love, you're not just opening your heart to someone else. You're opening a door to parts of yourself that usually stay hidden. The fear of abandonment, the feeling of not being enough, the desire to control, the longing to be fully seen. Love brings everything unhealed to the surface. But rather than seeing this as pain, Jung urges us to see it as transformation, an invitation to see who we are and who we've yet to become. Many people lose themselves in love and call it connection, but what they've lost is their self. Individuation in love happens when you step out of that fusion, when you maintain your boundaries yet stay open to truly knowing another. Jung wrote, "A real relationship isn't the merging of two into one. It's the meeting of two souls who already know who they are. Every reaction, every wound, every craving in a relationship is a mirror, not asking you to fix the other, but asking you to see what part of you remains unintegrated. For example, jealousy, often your shadow trying to control from fear of not being enough. Your partner's coldness could be your unacknowledged animus speaking up, the need to be completely understood, your inner child longing for a mother. Individuation isn't just psychological, it's spiritual. When walked consciously, love becomes a sacred initiation into your most authentic self. In Jung's own life, his wife Emma wasn't just a life partner. She was a mirror for his individuation process. Even as Jung had a deep soul connection with Tony Wolff, his colleague and likely his emotional partner Emma stayed. Not from passivity, but from deep inner work. She faced her shadow. She processed her pain. She confronted the archetypes of the feminine within herself. She didn't dissolve into the relationship. She stood strong as a fully integrated woman. Emma didn't need to be loved like Tony. She only needed to know who she truly was. Love, when deep enough, doesn't dissolve you. It brings you home to a version of yourself more whole than ever. So how do you love as an act of individuation? Ask, what is this reaction revealing about me? Every strong feeling is an inner summons, a mirror inviting you inward. Watch for projections. If you overly idealize or strongly resent someone, it's likely you're projecting an unmet part of yourself. Accept differences. Individuation doesn't require sameness. It asks you to love the difference as your greatest opportunity to grow. Practice love with boundaries. Don't lose yourself. Don't try to save them. Simply say, I see you, I see myself through you, and I choose to stay with that awareness. Individuation doesn't happen when things go smoothly. It comes when you break, when you cry, when you're triggered, and still choose not to blame. You sit with yourself. You listen to what was never heard, and piece by piece you become whole. Love doesn't make you perfect, but if you let it, it will bring you closer to wholeness than anything else ever could. Paraphrase from Jung. Carl Jung once said, "We do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." And in love, those painful, triggering moments are often the doorway to awakening. But that door doesn't open on its own. We must walk step by step through the shadows into clarity, from unconscious reactions to conscious decisions. No one enters love without scars, and intimate relationships are where those wounds bleed. You're abandoned. It feels like childhood is replaying. You're betrayed. Trust collapses like when your parents used to fight. You're ignored. Suddenly you're that invisible child again, waiting to be chosen. Jung called this the activation of complexes, when unhealed experiences resurface through new storylines. But most of us don't realize that. We think they hurt me. Truthfully, they touched a place in me that I've never held with love. This is a rare moment when you stop blaming, and instead you begin to ask, why do I attract people like this? Why is my reaction so intense? What part of me is being activated? You start to see, this wasn't just a painful relationship. This was a mirror, a message, a lesson from within. Jung called this the symbolic life, when every experience becomes a metaphor, a way the unconscious speaks to you. And when you stop fleeing from emotion and start understanding it, you begin to translate that language. You no longer love out of loneliness. You no longer stay in hopes they'll change. You no longer choose people because they make you feel enough. You choose them because you already are enough and they align with your path of growth. This is the beginning of conscious love. You don't react, you respond. You don't control, you set boundaries. You don't demand they complete you, you share your wholeness. And in doing so, you become the first in your lineage to break the cycle. Journey in summary. Wound, triggered by an experience in love. Awaken, trace the root of your reaction back to your past. Choose, no longer act from reflex, but from new awareness. One awakened lover has the power to heal generations before them. You'll still feel pain, still doubt, still sometimes fall into old habits. But the difference is, this time you see, this time you choose. You don't need a perfect partner. You need someone who can awaken with you. And before you find that person, you must first become that person for yourself. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Maybe you've asked yourself, why do I keep falling into the same kind of relationships? Why do I always feel like I'm not enough, no matter who I love? Why does the harder I try, the more lost I feel in love? But now you see through a different lens. Not to judge the past, but to understand it as part of your awakening. Love, as you've discovered, is more than a feeling. It's a mirror of the soul, a space where old wounds are triggered, where shadows surface, and also a place where you can begin again, from within. No one taught us how to love ourselves before loving another. No one showed us how to tell the difference between the child who needs holding and the adult who must hold boundaries. No one told us love isn't just about finding the right person, but becoming someone who can awaken within love. So if this video stirred something in you, if you saw yourself in the stages wounding, awareness, conscious choice, if you've ever loved with everything and still felt it wasn't enough, then maybe this is your turning point, a new breath, a quiet reminder that you are not broken, you are becoming, and this journey is worth living consciously. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What part of this video changed how you see love? Is there a wound you're learning to see as a symbol for growth? Your story matters because you might be the light someone else needs right now. If you want to keep walking this journey with me, hit subscribe. Not because I have all the answers, but because I promise each video will take us deeper into the path of awareness healing and awakening through symbols, emotions, and the wisdom of Jung. Because love doesn't end when a relationship ends. It continues every time you choose to look deeper into yourself. Thank you for staying until the end. We are not alone on this path. We just have to learn to truly see one another.